Okay, peeps, welcome back. So LTCN and BCHG may be about ready to get a bounce. Let's get it. So the first thing that we're going to go over here is LTCN. If you guys take a quick look at the chart, you can see that it's pretty much at the same price that it was at yesterday. So, I myself, I'm a little bit curious as to why this is, because kind of expecting it to come back down to this support between $23 to about $27. Excuse me. Again, that doesn't mean that it can't come down there, but let's try to find out why this is actually stopping at $30. So, again, this is one of the reasons why I said it may not, if you're looking to buy in this zone, it may not necessarily come down to this zone. In that situation, if you believe that, maybe DCAing on the way down is the best bet. So at least you can catch some of the price action, even if you don't time the bottom perfectly. So if we look over from right to left here, you guys can see that a lot of the major bullish candles that took place in the previous bull cycle before Bitcoin actually started taking off towards the end of 2020 in the halving year, which we are in the halving year. There's a lot of bullish wicks here. We actually probably got to zoom in to see this. So you guys can see long wick here, long wick here. Any wicks to the downside that you see that are really long like this indicates major buying pressure. You also have a couple of wicks here, although these ones were not as big. But after that, I mean, you guys see what the price action did here, just massive, massive buying pressure to the upside. So yeah, it kind of does look like maybe, zoom in a little bit here, you can see there's another wick right here. So it kind of lines up perfectly with these candles on the left. So maybe it's institutions, I'm not sure, but there's a chance that the bulls might be trying to hold up the price here at this $30 level, and it may actually hold, because as you guys can see, the last time it held at that $30 level that we're seeing right now, it's hard to see once I'm zoomed out like this, but as you guys can see, the price just really took off to the upside. I mean, this thing just, once it based out at $30 or 30-ish or so, I mean, it went from $30 straight up to $510. So that's a massive move. That's a 17x. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna do a 17x from this point. I highly doubt it. Again, the halving's right around the corner, and there's some macro headwinds and stuff, so there's all that, but that's just an important thing that I want to point out to you guys. So once again, we need to get above this control bar. Once we do, I would say that the price is set to go much higher than 50. We're going to go up to 100 to 135, somewhere in there. Might have a temporary pit stop at like about $75 or so, but then from that point, definitely, most likely, going to be moving much, much higher from there. So if we do the measured move here from the current price to the recent peak here, you guys can see that move alone is 77%. And of course, from right here up to this zone is going to be roughly about a 3 to a 4.5x, somewhere in there. But if you wanted to try to get your price set down here at this level, you'd be looking at roughly about 119x. Us personally, we're not going to buy anymore unless it gets down to this zone down here, which is between just under $13 to just shy of $15. If it gets somewhere in there, then we'll definitely buy more. But if I'm being completely honest, even with the temporary sell-off we're seeing in native crypto, I'm kind of thinking it's not really going to break this level, if I'm being completely honest, because yeah, I just don't see that happening. I mean, this thing's creating a trajectory here of higher highs and higher lows. As you can see, you have your low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then presumably this thing would keep going up. So that's what's known as a bull trend. In order for this thing to break that bull trend, we would need to get a candle close below this level here at $10. Way down here, we would need to break this higher high, of course, which is a 16, and then break the higher low at $10, and I just do not see that happening. So anyways, those are the moves for LTCN. So now we're going to get into BCHG. So this thing is sitting almost perfectly in the middle of the zone here, which is not really surprising. I mean, again, based on the price action of the candles back here, you guys can see that this thing could bottom out pretty much anywhere in the zone. So anywhere between about $12.75 and maybe $10-ish or so. So now is pretty much a prime time to get into a BCHG. I mean, could it go lower than this? Yeah, it's possible. If it goes down to the next level, that's going to be roughly about $7 to $8. If it does get to that level, we're going to buy some more down here, but we probably won't buy any up here. Just simply because, I mean, if we were gonna sell this thing, um, I mean, what I mean to say is, if we were going to sell it before, we would have sold up here at the top. But of course, it depends on where we sell. But if we're selling like in here, then we're not going to buy in here because it doesn't make sense. We want our money to go further, so we would wait for a lower drop down here to buy more to basically get less or more shares for less money. So, anyways, the current resistance is between 18 to about $20, and the wick high up here is going to be about 23.60. So if you chose to get it now, it'd be about a 58 to about a 79% move up, and then to get to that wick high up there, 107%. And I do want to point out to you guys, these things do tend to take a little while to get back to moving to the upside. I mean, as you guys can see here, it was quite a few weeks. We're talking like maybe a few months at this point on this one before it started really ramping up. And then same thing here. So basically December to February, so about 3 months before this thing started popping off hard to the upside. So it may just kind of chop around a little bit before it goes back up. Do keep that in mind. So this is what's known as an accumulation zone. So this is accumulation, and all this right here is also accumulation. So if you see something like that, if you see it chopping sideways, that's your cue that this is accumulation, and it may, if that's what you want to do, it may be a good time to get in. So the measured move from the current price to the wick high up here is going to be up to 108%. So HZEN, this one does look like it actually wants to go lower. We're going to wait for it to get a little bit closer to the zone here to start picking some up. So that's going to be about $3.80 to $4.20 per share. Resistance is $7 to about $8, and the previous high up here is about $10.50. Of course, this bull flag got negated. That does happen sometimes, just so y'all know. So to get back to the wick high from the current price, you're looking at about 95%. Just to give you guys kind of the risk metric here, to get back down to support the drop could be as much as 30%. And if you wanted to wait to get into the zone down here, just to get to the next zone, you'd be looking at about 70 to 105%, and then all the way up to potentially 160%. So pretty solid move on that one. So ETCG, this one I would say is pretty much as close as you're going to get to perfect to a support level entry at this point. I mean, it is literally within not even $1 of that trend line, and also the bottom of the support. It is sitting at the EMAs, which is generally a good time to get in. You also have this channel forming a support here as well. So as you guys can see, it came back, tested these EMAs roughly about the same spot that it's testing now on the blue EMA, kind of chopped around a little bit and then bang, straight up to the upside. So current support is roughly about $13 to $15.90, and resistance is $17.70 to about $20. So from the current price, just to get back up to the top of this zone would be 14%, and then you have 27% and about 45% respectively. So GXLM, this one does look like it's actually kind of bouncing here a little bit off of the top of this wedge pattern. So this trend line could actually serve as support. Some people do this where they'll like draw a diagonal trend line like along a certain how do I want to explain this? Along a certain formation of price action. So if price action starts acting a certain way, they'll kind of draw like a trend line on it, kind of like how we have on Bitcoin on the monthly time frame, something like that. I can show you guys that right now. Or even on the weekly. So like this, for example, you can see this trend line here, how it kind of respected the price here. And then you have your monthly right here is respecting that price. And then, of course, we bounced off and went up. Something very similar to that. So go back to GXLM. So this trend line here does appear to be holding as support. So maybe potentially look to get in roughly about $40. Just to be on the safe side, I personally think that maybe it could wick down, or maybe even have like a sell-off, or like a doji candle where it kind of goes up, then goes down, then lands somewhere in the middle or something like that, to kind of fake people out both ways. So you might get maybe like a wick down here where you can dip buy on it, but I would say that's still going to be somewhere around $30 to $40, just as we said in previous videos. So basically from the $40 level to get back to resistance is about 29 to 43%. And then let me actually get rid of this because this did not play out. So to get back to that wick high, you're looking at about 71%. And then to get from roughly about the $30 level or so, you'd be looking at about 66 to 88%, and then as much as 125%. So ETH, this one does look like it's actually breaking down out of the handle pattern here. If that does happen, then it's likely going to come back down and test this support here. So roughly about $17.50 to about $18. Of course, we have a couple more trading days. This could just bounce and go straight back into this channel here. That's a possibility. If it does bounce and it still holds and it does turn out to be a cup and handle, then the target is all the way up here at just shy of $54. So if it bounces from this support level here, or sorry, not the support level, if it bounces from the channel, which is definitely a possibility. So to get back to the top of this resistance range, about 39%, and then up to the next level is 95 to about 125%. And then you would be looking at as much as about 152% on that move. However, if it goes down to this support zone here and you guys did want to wait that long to get in, that's of course your choice. It'd be about 42% to about 66% on that move. And then if you're really ambitious and you want to wait for it to get back up to the previous all-time highs, you'd be looking at about 131 to 171%. And then of course, if the cup and handle pattern plays out, 205%. But then again, if price comes down to this support zone here and then goes up to this target, it's not going to go up to $54 because of the cup and handle pattern. It's going to go up to $54 because Ethereum is going to new all-time highs. So because again, this pattern here, this bullish pattern would have been negated. So that would not be the reason why it would go back up to $54 if it was going to. So Zcash, this one is actually, believe it or not, in my opinion, a great time to buy. So it's between 440 and 510, and resistance 740 to $8. And then the previous wick high is basically 10 and a quarter is what you're looking at here. So if you decided to get in now, you'd be looking at roughly about 48.5 to about 62.5%, and then all the way up to 104% move on this one. And again, there is some strong support here. So you have this support zone here, and then you have the EMAs, of course, and then you have this top right up here, kind of these candle body highs at $3, which if retested would most likely bounce, and that is sitting in the middle of yet another support zone, as you guys can see right here along all this price action. So GSOL, this thing does look like it wants to go lower. It's slowly creeping down there, even though Solana itself has actually sold off quite a bit. I know there's a lot of people that have commented on this channel and they said, oh, why are you bearish on Solana? Guys, we're not bearish on Solana. We just don't want to buy Solana when it's only 33% from all-time highs or 20% from all-time highs or whatever it is. Look, we've been doing this for a long time. We try to stack the odds in our favor, so to speak. Buying when crypto prices are all the way at the top, generally speaking, not a good idea, maybe with the exception of Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those are kind of more longer term holds. But these altcoins, they can go down 20, 30, 40, 50% or more in a day, a week, a month. I mean, when Bitcoin went down in the previous bear market 74%, the altcoins went down like 90+%. So do keep that in mind when when we talk about Solana, we're not bashing it. We just don't want to buy it when it's super expensive. We had the chance to buy it $20 when Solana was at $20. We didn't. We missed the opportunity, so we decided to move on to something else. It's just the way it is. So, anyways, the price of GSOL is probably likely to bounce somewhere between 175 to 200. Maybe even at this 230 level, because you can see this massive green candle here when it broke out. So somewhere in that area is likely going to be a bounce zone. If you chose to get in, let's say, I don't know, maybe $190 or so, you'd be looking at 195% just to get back up to that local high there. So Mana, this one is coming down quite a bit. Let me actually move this support zone over a little bit so we can actually kind of see what's going on here. Okay, I don't know what that was, but yeah, the chart just kind of moved itself. That was weird. So anyways, so current support is going to be roughly about $17.50 to $20. And then, of course, the previous wick high is going to be at $70. With the way that Solana is dropping at this point, with how aggressive these candles are getting, as you can see the red volume down here on the volume indicator starting to pick up a little bit. We have a kind of curling over of the MACD, which is very bearish. I would say it's likely to get into the zone. Again, this candle was this candle was big, then this breakout candle was a little bit smaller. But then when we got the breakdown candle, this next candle, as you guys can see here, is getting bigger. So that indicates an acceleration of sell-off. So how you guys want to go about this is up to you. If we were going to buy, we'd buy down here in the zone or starting in the zone. We wouldn't really want to touch this unless it gets there. Again, it's all about risk rewards. So to get back up to that wick high up there, you'd be looking at about 277% gain. I don't know. You tell me, would it be worth it to buy, at that zone and then get 280%? For us, it would. For you guys, you're going to have to make that decision for yourself. So GBAT, very similar thing, a lot of bearish pressure here. I'll basically reiterate one more time that I think that it's likely going to bounce somewhere around $10. I think that's likely because as you guys can see, once we got the break of the trend line, this thing really started accelerating once it got past this previous top here. You can see this candle lines up with this top and then boom, it started taking off. So if you decided to get in at the $10 level, of course, that's your choice. It'd be about a 244% move back to the upside, and the top up there is at about $32. But if you wanted to wait for the support down here, that's entirely fine. That'd be about between $4.50 to about $5. So G-Link, this one's kind of taking its time. It does look like it wants to come down. We did get a confirmed breakdown on the triangle patterns, so I would say likely it's going to bounce somewhere between the zone, about 67 to about $85 or so. And from that point to the previous local highs, about 192%. So PhilG, this one has finally made a move. It finally kind of is slowly starting to sell down here. I still would say that I personally would not buy this until it probably gets down to at least, and again, this is just my opinion personally, probably at least to $70, maybe even as low as $60. I say that because you kind of have this wick action here. So this wick topped out at about 70. And then you guys can see like the bulls tried to push this thing up. The bears sold it back down and they're like, nope, we don't want you to get past this wick here. And then after that, it broke out. So that's a very important level. Again, the support below that, the actual support zone itself is going to be roughly about $37 to $42. Do you understand there's a risk in between the price metrics there? But we'll measure both just so you guys are covered on this. So from 70 to the previous local high is about 476%. And then from the zone down here to the wick high is about 870%. So huge difference there. You could DCA down. You could choose to wait for either zone. It's entirely up to you. So GLIV, you can see this kind of flat candle here. It indicates very low trading volume. As you guys can see, you take a look over to the left of the chart, you'll see it says 336 by the volume. That's just above the EMAs over here. So it says 336 compared to last week, 5.682. That's 5.6 thousand, just so y'all know. So not a lot of trading volume coming in yet, but this thing is below the triangle pattern, so likely it's going to come down and once again probably stop somewhere between 26 to 28 bucks. Again, that's because you have these candle body tops here and then these wick lows down here. So there's some confluence in price there. And from that point back to the previous local top, you're talking about 213%. So when are these things really going to start running up and taking off and hit new all-time highs? Well, as we told you guys in previous videos, there's a few different metrics we're looking at here. So a couple of things need to happen, okay? Number one, Bitcoin needs to, well, a few things. So number one, Bitcoin needs to hit all-time highs. That's already happened. It could happen again by the end of the year or at the start of next year. We could have like maybe a 20-30% sell-off in Bitcoin, chops around sideways for a few months after the halving. Then it pushes up to like 90, 100K by the end of the year and then starts smashing to the upside before alt season next year. That could happen. Or another scenario is Bitcoin already had its peak for the cycle at 74,000 and we're about ready to enter alt season after the halving. And then the Bitcoin dominance sells off and, maybe in a few months from now, altcoins start flying to the moon. And then the end of the cycle happens maybe sometime around this year, or the end of this year, I should say. I think that's less likely, to be honest. I don't think the cycle is going to change, regardless of whether BlackRock and those guys are involved or not. So number one, Bitcoin needs to hit all-time highs. Doesn't mean it can't have a second cycle peak. It did last time. So number two, oh, by the way, Bitcoin hitting all-time highs, usually that also has to happen after the halving. So number two, the halving has to happen. That's in a couple of days. And number three, we need to see the Bitcoin dominance break down and money flow from Bitcoin into altcoins. We just simply have not seen that yet. So once again, we saw this last cycle, roughly about January 2021. That's roughly about the same time that Bitcoin topped out. And then we saw basically a waterfall on the Bitcoin dominance. You can see January 2021, basically at this peak right here. Bitcoin wasn't yet completely topped out yet, which I don't think it is at this point now, but you can see that a little while later it did rip even higher than that. But during this period right here, that's when money started to flow out of Bitcoin and into altcoins. As Bitcoin was getting ready to top out for its true cycle peak after the halving, that's when money started flooding into altcoins. That's when the Grayscale Trust started popping off. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.